formally start now. Mr. Harriman, if you could stop shaking people's hand. I don't agree with you. My name is Joe Jadira. I'll be acting as the moderator today. Let me highlight the agenda and how we'll be doing this. Mr. Terry Buford, the director of the Arundel Library System, will be up here and do a PowerPoint presentation, and then he'll introduce the board. Mr. Peter Mendick, gentleman over there with a whole bunch of cards, will be reading questions that you have submitted already, and then the board will answer them. The reason I emphasize this, during the presentation, if there's certain questions you want to write out or write down, I'm sure there's enough cards available for you. And ladies, can you make sure there's enough cards out there? And then you can write down your questions, and they'll be picked up and brought up to Peter. After that, the board will do a final presentation. Again, the questions you want to ask have to be written out, and we'll bring them up to Mr. Mendick. All right, Terry? Here, Joe. Scared me.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out this morning to what, by my count, is our 19th community forum or meeting with some public organization to discuss this new library plan. We've got one more coming up on the evening of April 10th. Okay, and hopefully you'll think that we've done a good job of sharing this information and getting it out to as many people as possible and discussing it in an open forum like this. I think we're saving the introductions till afterward. So yes, we're here today to discuss our proposal to build a library here on the Town Hall campus. And as we go through this presentation today, my colleagues on the library board, Town Supervisor DeRizio, are going to jump in with their comments and their observations about this project. Right out here on this lawn, we'd like to put a brand new library that complements the Town Hall architecture and gives us the space that we need to carry out the operations of a modern-day library. And that includes not only space for the library, but we hope also space for community groups that need meeting rooms, and for programming, and for community organizations to carry out their missions and what they'd like to do. And that includes the possibility of other town departments using some of this flexible space for when they have very popular programs. We've talked to the people at Parks and Recreation, and they would welcome a larger space for occasional programs that have much more demand than they have the space to provide. And that also includes the possibility of having some sort of a revenue-producing operation, possibly food service, that would help defray the costs of the project. And the reason why we're here today is because we're not meeting the needs of 21st century library users. The last major renovation to our library buildings was in 1985, back when an electric typewriter was a piece of high-tech office equipment. Our space and our facilities are inadequate, and the cosmetic improvements that we've made, although they've made the buildings look nicer, they haven't addressed the issue of space. And although some renovations are possible, it's still not going to give us the room that we need to carry out the operations that we feel a library should have and that our customers tell us that they want. And the lack of space not only affects how the public uses the building, but the staff as well. And we have some big-time efficiency problems that need to be addressed as well. In the past, people have said to us, well, golly, if you just kept up your buildings, everything would be fine. Well, that wouldn't address the space, and it also is incorrect that we haven't kept the buildings up. We're spending we're averaging about $44,000 a year in maintenance and upkeep costs, while balancing the operations of the library, because that money comes out of the library's operating budget. And of course, we have duplicate services that we'd like to eliminate as well.
The duplication at each branch also includes materials. So the materials that we currently need to buy duplicate sets of, we'd be able to spend that money, instead of buying 2 of everything, we'd be able to use that money to buy a much more diverse collection and have a deeper collection. Something else that I wanted to point out was in 1985, when that last major renovation was done, it was actually felt that the renovations were inadequate at that point. We expanded about as large as we could given the footprint that each branch has. What we want to try to do is build a flexible, adaptable building so that we're not faced with those same issues as soon as the library is built, so that we can use it differently as the needs of the community and the needs from the library change and evolve over our future years.
So here's a chart that illustrates what we're talking about. Across the bottom, you'll see the list of the major libraries in the Monroe County Library System. And up the left side, you'll see the number of years. And you can see that most libraries have, within the last 15 years, either built a new building or carried out major renovations to their library buildings. And then there's that one tall blue bar there above Irondequoit. We're closing in on 30 years without any changes to our buildings. And boy, library services have changed a lot in 30 years. Here's another chart that also illustrates our situation pretty well. Again, across the bottom of the screen are the major towns in the Monroe County Library System and their populations. And then up the left-hand side is the number of square feet that their building is. And then the exact square footage is across the top of each bar. And as you can see, we have less square footage than just about everybody. But actually, this slide is a little deceptive because it actually makes it better than it really is, because we don't really have 24,000 square feet. We have 2 12,000 square foot buildings. And in each one of those 12,000 square foot buildings, we're trying to carry out the same operations that Greece is doing in 38, and Pittsford is doing in 30, and Webster's doing in 43. So with a 12,000 square foot building, it's very difficult to do that. We're trying, but it's very difficult. We'd really like a little more space so that we can be as good as you deserve.
Some of the other feedback we've been hearing is comparing Irondequoit to Greece, where Greece does have a much larger population than we have, and a smaller square footage library. A few things to point out there is Greece also, on their same town hall campus where their library is, they have a community center with additional square footage for community groups and meeting room space. They also have a senior center on the same complex. In addition to that, Greece, when they were building their building about 10 or 11 years ago, they cut out meeting and programming space from their original concept, which they regretted. And since that time, they've actually undergone 2 or 3 renovations since that renovation happened, or that building happened. And this most recent renovation was to reconfigure some space to add back in the meeting room and program room that they originally had to cut. Webster is another comparison that people bring up, where they have 43,000 square feet of space in their library. Why do we think we need more? Well, Webster also has a community center, and they just built a rather large recreational center that has adaptable, flexible meeting room space that we'd like to incorporate into our library. We meet community groups regularly that need to be turned away from our meeting room space because it's so well used. We don't have enough space to accommodate all the community groups that wish to hold different types of meetings or performances or different types of things that they want to do for our community, where our building with this flexible design space, we'd be able to accommodate them.
Occasionally, people say to us, okay, so you need a new library, what's the rush? Well, here's a timeline of the rush. We've done studies, or the town has done studies, about town facilities and or library buildings since 1998. And every year or two, they did another one. A Gordon Black survey in 98, a long-range plan by the library board in 99, a Barkstrom and LaCroix facilities plan in 2002, a strategic consulting feasibility study in 2003, a Thomas Group study that the library board conducted in 2005, another Barkstrom and LaCroix study for the Kings Park campus in 2006. The library board's attempt to figure out whether the McGraw branch could be expanded in 2009. And then again last year when the Passereau Associates was hired to update the 2005 study. So when people say, what's the rush, we think about this timeline.
And the result of all of those different studies, the thing that study, all those studies have in common, Terry usually asks this question, the thing they all have in common is that nothing was done. We've studied, we've looked at it, we've debated. The town board felt, or the library board in conjunction with the town board feels strongly that now is the time to actually do something and use the results of those studies to move forward with this plan.
So why the town hall campus? Well, for a number of reasons. It is the central location in town. If you pull out a map and take a look at and just try to put your finger on the center of town without looking at any landmark labels, I think your finger's going to pretty much come down right about here. It saves the cost of purchasing land to put a building on, and it doesn't remove any property from the tax rolls. This is a big issue for us in government. It can be safely reached on foot or on bicycle, and parking, traffic, and still holding the festivals on the town hall campus will not be a problem. The town planning department has been working to reconfigure the way the town hall campus operates and to add additional parking above and beyond the parking that the library will add when the building is erected. The DPW is going to reconfiguring the way they operate, and that will free up parking spaces. Traffic studies will be conducted. The 4th of July and other celebrations will still be held at the town hall campus. Obviously, we'll have to rearrange a few things, but the organizers of the festival assure us that this is not a problem. So when we decided to move forward with these public forums, we realized we needed something to show you. And so a couple local architectural firms put together concepts for what a building on the town hall campus that houses the library and complements the town hall's architecture might look like. And so here's one from Passereau Associates. And as you can see, they've got a concept with parking both alongside and behind the building. No, we won't be switching Titus back to a 4-lane highway. And here is another concept from Barkstrom and LaCroix of a town hall campus where all of the parking is between DPW and the new library. Their concept has a little more of the library spread out on the first floor and a smaller second floor. When you're out in the lobby here, you'll see some color drawings of that with a head-on view, and you'll see that arrangement helps diminish the size of the building a little bit to the eye. Here's the drawing that we think is really cool. I believe Jack Harriman on our library board found this drawing, in a framed print in the basement of the town hall, just hanging on the wall. And it's a 1948 drawing of the original plan for the town hall campus as devised by former Supervisor Broderick. And the original plan, according to the town historian, was that building on the left that you can only see part of would be the police department, and that building on the right that you can see a little bit more of would be the library. And that's exactly where we're talking about putting it. So we think it's kind of cool that we've come full circle and we're proposing a library in basically the same spot that Supervisor Broderick, whom this room is named after, conceived of it many years ago. So there's that map I was talking about. Mentally put your finger on the center of town, and I think it's probably going to be pretty much where that pink dot is, which is where the town hall campus is.
Here's probably another point to make. You can't really see it too clearly here, but there's 2 green dots on that map too. Those are our current 2 branches of our library. They are less than 3 miles apart. And the town hall is pretty much smack dab in the middle of them.
So if we get this bigger building, how do library services get better? Libraries evolve. We evolve to meet the needs of the community. That's why things like the internet and e-books, which were always predicted to make the library go away, actually makes the library more popular than ever. And so if you got your e-book reader, it's so exciting because I can download books and I don't have to go to the library, except that if you want them for free, like the library has always been, you still have to go to the library because the people who write the books still want to get paid. If you want to buy a book, you still have to pay for it. So the library evolves to meet the needs of the community. And one of the things that is evolving is the way people use the library, shifting from visiting a place where books are on the shelf to places where they use computers and they create content and they get trained on how to do that. And we are in the middle of sort of a renaissance in libraries because of connected computers and the cost of broadband access that the library provides for free. But an improved library building will improve access for patrons with disabilities, mobility difficulties. Right now, the library's restrooms are inadequate. The spaces in the building are just minimally compliant with the ADA requirements. We desperately need dedicated teen and children's areas to serve those populations effectively and to let them enjoy the library without disrupting library operations. We desperately need more seating and more computers. We limit people to 45 minutes a day on a computer because of lack of facilities. Enforced quiet areas so that people can still study seriously and use the library as they always have, but also room for community meetings, classes, programming, and yes, modern and handicapped accessible restrooms.
Through our different community meetings that we've been having, we were also getting some great feedback from those groups. We recently presented to a group of seniors at Pine Grove. And one idea that came out of that, which is really quite brilliant, I think, was to arrange for the library to be a stop on the senior buses that take seniors around to their doctors. They take them to Pine Grove. They come back and pick them up. To have the library be a stop on that route where they can come to the library, spend a couple of hours, check out books, talk to friends. And from that, we're even thinking we can schedule programs for them during that time. We can make sure that we reach out to them and find out what other types of programs they'd like for us to offer during that time. In addition, we met with 3 high school senior politics and government classes, and some of the ideas that came out of that was some concerns from those students is there really isn't space for when they have group study where they need to create projects together. There really isn't that space after school hours or on the weekends for them to do that. So that's, in addition, we can make sure that that space is available to them. Some concern about the walkability to the current branches from the high school. From those meetings, we discussed that at Greece, I think it was when Greece built their library, they worked with the school district for the library to be a stop on the school bus route. So that's something else that we can explore. So these are all types of different services and things that we're unable to do now that we'd be able to explore and implement for our town.
So as I was saying, libraries are evolving. They don't go away. They change to meet the modern needs of the community, whatever they might be. And so here's a little statistical information on that. In January, the Pew Research Group, widely respected national research organization, surveyed people about their attitudes towards public libraries. The top reason people visit libraries is still to borrow materials. So even with all the e-book and internet talk, the thing people still want to do most at their library is stop by, get some things, and take them home. But the second highest reason for people to visit the library is to use the internet or to bring their mobile device along and use the free Wi-Fi. If you pay, I was talking about this today, when you pay your cable internet bill and you see that number, and then, if you're looking to save money, that's one of the first things people look at, and internet and Wi-Fi are free at the library. And young people still use the library. 60% of all young adults surveyed said they still visit the library often. And 80% of Americans said borrowing materials from the library is still very important. And also 80% said that access to reference librarians who answer their questions is still very important. And 77% said that free access to computers and internet is still a very important library service. An important note about the study is this included people who identified themselves as non-library users. There's also a business connection to the public library. And again, in 2013, the Texas Department of Education and other states' education departments have done similar studies. But in Texas, the most recent study, they found that for every dollar that they invested in public libraries, there was $4.42 of economic benefit. How could this be? Well, we're only talking about things that can be measured, such as the value of the materials that you can borrow, or the value of the information or materials that you can get access to, journals, newspapers, that sort of thing. The value of free access to computers and the internet, and the value of extremely expensive services that you'd never buy for yourself, like the research databases that have millions of journal articles in full text. This did not even include the other benefits that the library provides that aren't so easily measured. They left off these, all the help that we give to the unemployed who need email and online service so that they can fill out job applications. Our largest employers no longer accept any job application except for an electronic one. During our 19 meetings and forums that we've held, one was with the Chamber of Commerce. And after that meeting, the Chamber voted to officially recommend this library project as something you should vote for. And here's the text of their recommendation. The Irondequoit Chamber of Commerce recognizes that a 21st century central library will offer the types of valued services and amenities that attracts home buyers, retains homeowners, and keeps the business and spending power of residents in the Irondequoit community. For the good of our merchants and for the good of our residents, the Irondequoit Chamber of Commerce endorses this long overdue plan, no pun intended, to improve our town with a new central library. And a very nice lady wrote this letter to the Irondequoit Post back in February, and it really drives home the point about business. Gas is $4 a gallon. I don't leave my house to just do one thing anymore. So she wrote, one day last year I realized that I was driving to other towns and taking my disposable cash with me. I was shopping at Hagedorn's instead of Harrima's. I was getting my caffeine fix at Orion's, not Sips. Why? Because I need to visit a quality library once a week to get my books and videos and maybe do some genealogical research. The cramped ranches were not doing it for me. So, of course, it has been our intention since day one that the citizens of the community decide whether we move forward with this plan. And so, on April 23rd, Tuesday, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., there will be a referendum vote. If you are a resident of the East Irondequoit School District, you'll vote at the Ridge Culver Fire Department. If you are a resident of the West Irondequoit School District, you'll vote at the St. Paul Fire Department on Cooper Road. Absentee ballots are available. If you stop at the town clerk's office, I believe they're mailing them out this week. So if you haven't talked to them yet, if they're not yet ready, they will send one to you. You'll just leave your name and address with them. You do have to be a registered voter. And on April 13th, there will be a special voter registration day here from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
To clarify that, you don't need to register again to vote in this vote. It's if you voted in the last political election, you're already registered to vote, so you don't need to register again.
When the referendum passes, building can begin. The bond will be for up to $13 million, and passing that bond means that your taxes would go up. If you have a home whose value is assessed at $100,000, it would cost you $29 a year. Or, as I like to say, a large pizza and an order of chicken wings. 29 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, or $2.42 a month. Now, this is for a 30-year bond at a 3.8% interest rate. The town's finances have improved greatly, and so we are more highly rated by the rating companies, and that helps us in that area, and it does take advantage of current low interest rates. And I know that probably the supervisor or Carol Mamano from the library board want to give you a little more detail on those financial questions.
This is the worst case scenario. As it is the day after the vote, it's not like we're going to go out and bond $13 million. As it is, the supervisor will talk more about the short-term borrowing, but the fact is that this is a low interest rate. We would be getting bonds along the way. We don't need all the money on day one, and so that $29 is the max. It is also up to $13 million. We will be aggressively fundraising. We'll be getting construction grants through the New York State Library System. We'll be getting private donations. We'll also, which will probably come up in another slide, selling the branch on East Ridge Road, which is currently assessed at $1.1 million. So all of that gets taken into consideration when we're going for the funding.
When we look at this slide, this is what we call a rough order of magnitude of what could be the cost to the taxpayer. However, we will not be going to a bond market, let's say November 1st, 2013, and immediately borrowing $13 million. We work with our fiscal advisors out of Syracuse and our bond counsel out of New York City, who obviously work with Wall Street in how we finance infrastructure. What will happen is this project will be broken down into financial segments in which we will seek what's called bands. Those are bond anticipation notes. When we went to the last bond market and we financed some projects with bands, it was at a rate of 0.65%, so under 1%. When we financed some of the larger projects, that was at 2%. Until the national unemployment drops below 6.7%, we're not going to see interest rates falling significantly. If you've been following with the financial companies on mortgages, they're showing 30-year mortgages at a lower rate than 3.8%. So this project will have what we call a rollover of those bands, bond anticipation notes, that'll be rolled over every 2 years, those lower interest rates into because of the period of time. When we went to the market this last time too, we called in some of ours and saved almost $300,000 in interest. So those are things that impact how we finance infrastructure. We have over the last 3 years built our fund balances, and one of the important reasons to do that is to stabilize what the tax rate is in the town. For 4 years, we have kept the tax rate at the same amount as we still continue to improve infrastructure. What's to be noted, as has been mentioned, is the duplication of services and things that I watch very closely that people don't think about is that we pay almost 50 cents per mile for employees who have to travel to other town facilities to conduct business. We're also paying them a certain hourly rate as they are driving across town. So think about the library personnel going between branches. On top of that, consider our IT people who have to work on the computer systems. These are all costs that people don't think about. Also, with these older buildings, the cost of insurance because they don't have sprinkler systems. Then we have to look at how many elevators that we are also funding, providing maintenance agreements. And when companies decide to charge for mileage every time one of the utilities needs to be repaired, we're being charged mileage to go to all these different aspects. So those are some of the things that we have to take in consideration. We don't know what the size of this building is going to be. We don't know what the operating expenses are going to be right now. What we do know is that it will be one of the most green, efficient, and technological buildings that will be in this region. And as NYSERDA and various utility companies are helping out municipalities with the funding, we know we will be able to garner those types of grants that will pay for that green technology. And so we're really excited that that will be a showcase for our region, especially for the town of Irondequoit.
There are some other costs that we need to talk about in relation to this project. We like to call it the cost of doing nothing. Our existing buildings, should we stay in them, need updating. So we've had some engineers in the building in the last year giving us estimates on what it would cost for the minor repairs that are needed, the upgrades so that we meet existing codes, and the health and safety features that the libraries need. And the estimated cost of those upgrades would be $2.2 million and adding no additional space to the buildings. Now, if we were going to stay in these existing buildings long term, then we need other improvements. Both libraries desperately need electrical upgrades. HVAC systems are aging. Some of them are close to 30 years old. And in addition to the first category, these additional improvements would total slightly over $6 million.
What these two scenarios continue also is trying to stretch our single operating budget across two full-service branches. We also studied some other options, the option to renovate and expand at each branch, which would mean putting on a second floor, which is very expensive, putting a second floor onto each branch, and also makes the space less flexible because there'd be pillars through each floor and each space. That has a cost of about $15 million. If we started over and knocked down the buildings and built from scratch to make the space more flexible, that has a price tag of about $17 million. And then we're still faced with the reality that we'd be stretching our budget trying to maintain two full-service branches less than 3 miles apart.
So sometimes people say to us, well, gosh, when my house falls into disrepair, I fix it up. And that's a good point, but when you outgrow your home, then you either need a new home or you need to make a bigger home. We've already talked about why it would be difficult to make our existing homes for the library bigger, and so we think it's time to look at a new home. So here are the annual costs for the three options that we're talking about here, and Carol's got more to say about that.
One of the things that you can't really see that well on the slide is that the long-term improvements and temporary repairs, those costs are over 15 years, because at the end, that's the amount that we would be getting for any kind of bond for that type of service. And at the end of 15 years, we still would be having the same old buildings, and by that time, we are going to have to do more repairs. So that's another cost that would be on as additional, so we would continually be upgrading the money. Terry didn't mention, we keep talking about our operating budget and talking about the repairs and the age of the building, and he didn't mention that we've just had to do an $8,000 repair in the heating system in the Evans branch. And that money, that $8,000, the HVAC system, there was a two pieces that had to be done, taken care of. The system is so old they had to build the parts, so the parts weren't readily available. So that's something that is a continual expense with us that all has to come out of our operating budget. So with a new building, we're going to have warranties on all of our new systems. So we need to come up as a library board. Our operating budget is set. That's the only amount we have for the year. We need to shift around costs now within our budget to make up for that $8,000 unplanned expense. And one of the other things when we're looking at, the supervisor mentioned a lot of the duplicate services. So we also, because we've gotten to the point that some materials we aren't buying two of anymore. Certain subscriptions are at one branch or another. So residents have to travel between the two branches sometimes to get everything that they want or have it shifted from one branch to another too.
So we want community involvement. We have a fundraising committee, and they will be aggressively seeking funding to help pay for the cost of the building. Grants are available, both, as we were saying, New York State construction grants, but also energy efficiency grants and green technology grants. And we'll be seeking a design firm that specializes in attracting that kind of money. I believe we already said that the McGraw branch could be sold, current assessment $1.1 million. We cannot sell the Evans branch. Back in the early 60s when the town built the library there, the school district, the West Irondequoit School District, owned that land and they sold it to the town for $1. But there's a restriction on it that it must always be used for a library or some other town purpose, or it will revert to the school district. So we can't sell the Evans branch. Okay, we can't let you leave today without challenging you. So, it's an easy challenge. If you haven't done this already, visit a library in a neighboring town. You choose. Then come back. If you're not a regular library user, come back and contact me, and I will give you a tour of whichever branch you would like to tour. And then compare. And then decide. Can we do better? We think the answer is yes. Okay, so we've been holding regular meetings all along. As I was saying, this is our 19th, by my count, meeting either with a community forum like this or with a community group. And as we hold these meetings, we get questions. Each time we get at least a few questions that we've never had before. And so we incorporate them into our frequently asked questions, which is available on our website, libraryproposal.com. And we also have copies of them printed that you can pick up today or at one of the library branches. In addition to libraryproposal.com, we also have a Facebook page, facebook.com/libraryproposal, and we also have a Twitter feed with the latest information about what's going on. And again, you can contact me or the library board at that email address, iplboard@yahoo.com, or me at tbuford@libraryweb.org, or that's my phone number right on my desk. Call that number. We'll set up a tour after you've seen what the other town library looks like, the one that you choose to visit. So we anticipate a lot of interesting questions today. Jot them down on one of the cards and hand them up, and we'll read them off and we'll answer them to the best of our ability. If we can't answer them, we will guarantee we will get back to you with additional information. And we also have a quick anonymous survey so you can tell us whether you thought we were doing a good job here today. We'll turn this back over to Judge Janier, who will moderate the discussion. And then the library board will sit up here and answer your questions after introducing themselves. So thanks for your time, and I hope you find this edifying and informative.
First, let's do a quick introduction of the board. Mr. Perdicorn, if you'd like, I'm sorry, Mary Joyce, everybody knows you by now, so we're just going to skip over it.
John Perticone, Town Board. I'm the liaison between the Town Board and the Library Board.
I'm Miriam Gans. I don't think I'm on. I'm Miriam Gans. I obviously can't read the button that says push, but nevertheless, I'm the secretary of the library board, so we hope I improve my reading skills soon.
Jack Harriman, president of town for over 60 years, former owner of Harriman's Marketplace, and enjoy very much the opportunity to serve on this board.
I'm David Hepper. I'm currently the longest-serving member of the library board. Currently an at-large member, although I've been president twice and vice president and treasurer and secretary at various times.
I'm Carol Mamano. I'm the treasurer of the library board. And my day job, I'm an accounting professor at St. John Fisher College.
No. Is this on? Okay, it is on. My name is Stephanie Squitrini. I'm the president of the library board, and in my day job, I'm the teen services librarian at the Fairport Public Library, and I'm also the founder and director of the Greater Rochester Teen Book Festival.
And again, I'm Terry Buford. I'm the library director. I just started my 10th year as a library director here in Irondequoit. It's a really great job.
And Mr. Peter Mendick, who's a graduate of East Ridge High School and some college, U of R or something like that, has a few businesses in the town of Irondequoit and that I have to buy lunch for. We'll be reading the questions. Peter, if you'd like to go on the first one.
And our first question. Although many residents have seen costs rise, our salaries have stayed flat. Why not raise all necessary funding for the project before building, instead of passing costs along to residents, and hope to try to recoup some of the money after the fact?
That's a really good question. I would say that our buildings are failing at such a rapid rate that if we don't do something now, it's going to cost us a lot more in the future. We do, any money that we do raise following the fundraising campaign will go to pay for any additional expenses and help reduce the bond debt. The other thing is we're told from people who have told us that they would like to financially support through a fundraiser that they won't do so until they see support from the town for this project. So we do anticipate that that money will be raised. We just need a solid vote from the community before that can happen. Carol, did you want to?
And I just wanted to add the interest rates being so low. So if we're waiting, and there might be costs that we still would have to borrow for along the way. So just trying, right now is a good time to do it, with the town being in good financial situation and also with interest rates being low.
I would just like to add something here. I may get myself in trouble here, but I really feel like I have to say this. When you propose something like that, it would take many years to accumulate that money. Right now, the town board is very supportive, but they're not going to be on the town board forever. The next group would come along and say, golly, I'd rather spend that money on whatever. And I got a feeling that the library would never get built. There would always be something else that they would want to spend that money on instead of a library. That's just, that's just, it would be too tempting.
Can I just add one more point? Those of you who get the Irondequoit Post, you might have seen the letter to the editor that the LaRosas wrote last week, in which they talked about a situation that breaks my heart, but truly, our property values in Irondequoit are decreasing, and one of the reasons that they are decreasing is because the county has kind of lost faith in the town of Irondequoit, and this is a reality that we have to deal with. If we do something like build the library and show Monroe County that Irondequoit is moving forward, we do want to attract new young families, new money, and new development to our town. This is going to improve our property values. And speaking for myself and my husband, our biggest investment is our home. And we need to see that our property values, so yes, maybe our incomes are flat, but if we can guarantee that we're going to get, when we need to sell, we're going to get our money back out of our house, that is certainly going to help us. But if property values in Arundequoit continue to sink, it's like double indemnity as far as our finances are concerned.
Peter?
Depending on the completed size of the new library building, what is the proposed number of meeting rooms from a minimum of 34,000 square feet to the possible maximum?
Another good question. We really can't say because the layout of the building will be dependent on how many floors it's on. Do we need weight bearing on each floor? Where some of the unassignable space needs to be based on those designs. So it's really hard to say exactly how many individual meeting room spaces there'll be. What we do know is that they'll be built in such a way that they're flexible. So you can have one meeting room space that could be divided into, say, 3 different meeting room spaces with soundproofed walls so that you can have a card game or a card instruction program in one room, have a book discussion in another, and maybe a music program in the other all at the same time. So all of those final interior designs and layouts of the building will happen once we hire the architect, all the feedback from the community and their feedback on exactly what they want to see in their library and what that final design will look like.
Has the Arundequoit Central School District given written agreement to take over the operating budget of the Evans branch in 2014, since the branch can't be sold?
I'm assuming that means the West Arundequoit district because there isn't a central. There's 2 different school districts. The building can be sold by the school district. It just cannot be sold by the town. So what they do with it once it reverts back to them is up to them. But they can sell it, which would then benefit the town in a different way.
And where can all questions posed by the public on the project be reviewed? Only the most common questions are on the computer.
We've worked really hard to include all the questions. That document is now 11 pages long. There have been some times where questions have been similar that we've combined them into single questions or multi-part questions, but all of them are on the website. There's printed copies here as well. But we've made a concerted effort to make sure that all of those questions are on that document.
And will the bidding process be open and made available to the town citizens before any design selections are made?
Well, I think once it goes out to bid for design anyway, I believe the town will come up with probably 2 or 3 designs, and I think there will be public input. Eventually the ultimate decision will be made by the library and the town board, but there'll be public input on the designs and maybe some input on what you would think would like to be in a library and what you could see. They'll do a footprint of it, but there'll be town input on, residents' input on all the process through design, what design you like, because there'll be a few designs out there that we can look at and see what is the most good site to put on the site over there. So definitely there'll be input.
It's possible that question also is about using local contractors and businesses to build a new building, and that is our goal. If you look at the library's records, you would see we always try to purchase everything that we can from local merchants right here in Arundequoit whenever possible. So when that process is open for bid, we'd be thrilled if local businesses were selected.
Can I just make one comment too? Not only local businesses, but coming from the background I come from the trades, I believe once it goes out to bid and we have contractors to build this building, to me, I would talk and suggest I'd like to see some local residents that are in the trades work on this project. There'd be, speaking for myself, I think it'd be a proud thing to do, living in the town and building the library that's in the town that you live in. Those would be some things You can't guarantee local workers, but I think it could be a suggestion that we can use to some of the contractors. Let's get some local residents that are in the trades here on the project.
I'd like to go back to that other question too about the questions. Carol just reminded me, we have gotten some letters sent to us not in the public forum that those answers may not be on the document, so we'll make sure that those get on there. So, yeah, we'll make sure that those get on. We'll go through that there was a, or post the letter with the answers, so we'll make sure that gets on there.
Question, if the library vote fails, do you have a plan to maintain 2 branches? Additionally, there are grants for geothermal heating, cooling, and solar. The questioner, make one branch a children's library, the other adult media and books, solves all space and repetitive costs too.
These are issues that we have looked at. Splitting up the library services into 2 buildings. So there's some obvious difficulties with that. Parents and children use libraries together, and it would be a shame if the kids had to go to one building and then the parents had to go to the other building. But we've looked at all these possibilities, and that's certainly one of them. If it doesn't pass, I would say just about any option that you can think of is going to be on the table. Maintaining the 2 branches with limited funding is very difficult. You could see a scenario like that. I think everyone on the table here today would agree that there's no option that we wouldn't consider if that referendum does not pass.
Can I just add one more thing? There are New York State construction grants, and they are administered through the Monroe County Library System Board. And 2 years ago, we thought we could get a New York State construction grant because we had to do construction work on our driveway areas. And the Monroe County Library System said that they were very sorry, but they could no longer, they're the pass-through, they make the decision. They could no longer consider Arundequite because our 2 branches are not up to the standards set by the state and are far below the standards of all the other town branches. And they felt that towns that were keeping their libraries up to code and up to these standards had more rights to that money than we did. So, with that in mind, we can no longer get those construction grants for infrastructure. Now, I don't know what Monroe County Library System would say if we said we've got to upgrade, do something with these 2 branches, whether they would say, no, they're still too small. So there's a very real possibility that whatever we would do to maintain those 2 branches, as far as infrastructure is concerned, would all come out of your and my pocket. We would not get that New York State construction grant fund money for that. Am I correct?
Yeah, correct.
Go ahead, Peter.
Question, what is the combined square footage of the current libraries? 10,000 square feet for senior meetings? What is going on at the current Pine Grove Center? And do you plan to close Pine Grove if the library building is completed?
Each branch is currently 12,000 square feet, so they're almost exactly the same footprint. They're just designed a little bit differently. There's no intent to close Pine Grove. What we envision is complementing and supplementing what's already done at Pine Grove and being able to offer additional space for programs that maybe there isn't adequate space at Pine Grove. We could have those programs at the library. I think that answers all the different points of the question.
What is the effect on the 4th of July festivities? The digital age is growing. What effect will this have on needed space? Other cities have seen reduced book usage. Will the dollars spent on the library reduce the digital supply?
Okay. John, do you want to speak to the 4th of July?
Yeah, I'll
parade?
start with
Or
the 4th of July. There's no intentions at all that anything's going to happen with the 4th of July. It'll still go on. I think we'll have to just do a little restructuring on the campus for that 2 or 3 day festival that we're going to have, but the 4th of July is not going to be affected at all whatsoever. That will go on. The parade will be here, the beer tent will be here, and I'll repeat that, the beer tent will be here, and then all the vendors will still be here as well.
The question relating to books and the digital age, yes, we're finding that for libraries, less space might be needed for physical books, but more space is needed for the ways that people are using their library, for community gathering spaces, for programs, for ways for the community to connect, teach each other new skills, share different skills with each other. The digital age is impacting libraries, but libraries aren't going away. There are what libraries are doing now with additional space or different types of uses for space is to have digital download stations, so people can come to the library, get help with their digital devices, download music or books, audiobooks to their devices, and then have space to read them while they're in the library. So yes, there'll be less space needed for books, but what we're finding now is with our collections, we have grown to the size where literally every time we add an item, we have to delete one to be able to make space for it. If everybody returned all of the items they have checked out our library right now, we would not be able to fit them all. So we need more space for the items we currently have. We're getting rid of, unfortunately, materials that are still wanted. We're ending up getting them in from other libraries because we've had to delete them from our system. We're getting rid of items based almost solely on the fact that we just don't have the space for it. So even just given our current collections, we need more space.
Following along, devices like tablets and smartphones are now the norm for getting information and services, like the county library's Overdrive ebook system, which allows you to download books without going to the library. Monroe County Library data shows 100,000 less books checked out in 2012 than 2011. Why does the town see it fiscally irresponsible to erect a building that will most likely be obsolete before it's paid off?
I'm not sure the town does see that it'll be obsolete. When I went to library school 12 or 13 years ago, there were people who said, well, the internet's going to kill the library, that there's not going to be any need for libraries. And what we're finding is people are coming to libraries even more, trying to wade through the seas of information. So you have reference librarians to help them with that. Not everybody has an e-reader yet. Not everybody knows how to use them yet. So that's a need that we see needs to be filled. And again, we'll just use the space differently. Again, for community gathering spaces, for programs, for sharing that talent. Yeah.
Next question. Could you review the parking plans? It just seems that there's not enough space. What are the average number of cars parked at any one time at the other two branch libraries? Note, I am in favor of the new library.
Well, you want to touch on the parking? Well, the parking here on campus as of right now, basically, when you build a building, there'll be so many parking spots per 1,000 square feet. So definitely the town is going to be adequate for that. Plus, the DPW department eventually is going to start parking all their employees over on the Kings Highway side of the building. So the employees will be moving around the side, which will open up some more parking there. I think it's going to be somewhat of a challenge for the design team to do the parking, but obviously we're going to have enough room for the square footage of the building. And the other thing is, obviously between the hours of 9 and 4, there may be a small challenge there, but nights and weekends, there's going to be over 200 spaces here to park. And I believe that the library board in the town will come in with some scheduling, with the town board meeting or court at night, to make sure that there's not going to be a usage of the parking lot that both facilities can use. But I think it'll be a scheduling point right there with the two. But as far as parking, the town employees will be around on the side, the DPW guys, and it will be a challenge, but there'll be plenty of parking, because basically what I say, a 60,000 square foot building, by code in that, you got to have 50 or 60 spaces. We'll have plenty of that. Plus, you got to consider some handicap in that as well. Terry can probably talk on the spaces you have at the branches right now.
Well, parking is not a challenge at the McGraw branch because there's an extra parking lot that we own. But the Evans branch is a challenge because we only own the parking spots that are right around the building. And so we're challenged now. I couldn't tell you the average number of cars, but I just want to say what I say to everyone, and that is we're not interested in moving into a new building with a parking problem. We are going to hold the designer's feet to the fire to make sure that there's enough parking. That may affect the size of the footprint of the building. It may cause the design of the building to be more vertical and less spread out. But we need to preserve enough space around the building for parking, in addition to the new parking lot that will be built to the north. And we need to preserve enough space so that the festivals can go on. And that is a top concern. And that's one of the reasons why I can't tell you this is exactly what the building is going to look like. Finances and those spaces are going to determine some of the design of the building, and we'll work that out.
Even some of the Evans parking lot actually belongs to the church, is that correct?
The church, in fact, the majority of the parking spaces at the Evans branch belong to the church, and we have an agreement with them. You know, we plow it and we cut the grass, and we get to use it 6 days a week. But as the area around there becomes a more popular destination, new businesses opening up, those parking spaces get grabbed by people who aren't going to the bank, the church, or the library, and so that's going to become a challenge there as well. But, again, the last thing we want to do is build a wonderful new building and then have you show up and not be able to get a parking space. And so that's a top concern of ours.
All of the engineering shows, too, what peak hours are for the parking of vehicles as well as when users are using. And we know that there's going to be a tendency that the evening hours, it's going to be more populated by residents, and obviously the employees are not here. Also, I'm anticipating that the library would be open on Sundays if we were to centralize too. It is frustrating not to be able to use the library on a Sunday, particularly during the dreary months of winter. So obviously, parking would definitely not be an issue there. It has been determined right now that there are about 105 parking spots available, and we don't have that at the two combined branches.
Peter?
Will it be possible for the Arundecoit Art Club to have its monthly meetings and 2 annual art shows at the new library?
You betcha.
Okay, you can go to the next question.
That was the quickest answer.
We're looking forward to it. I bet the art club is too.
I know there is emphasis on programs for people and teenagers, but would like to see attention paid to senior citizens, as Arundecoit has the highest percentage of seniors in Monroe County. How about a monthly meeting of, quote, readers and writers, end quote?
That's a great idea. That is a great idea. And as I mentioned, when we met with the seniors at Pine Grove, they had the great idea of adding the library as a stop on their tour, on their bus stops. Something else that Webster did that we could also emulate is they actually have a special collection that's for seniors with topics that are special for seniors. It's their senior corner. So that's something else that we'd be able to explore with the additional space.
Just real quick. One of the big issues in the branches is seniors and adults in general have a different view of what they want to do in the library. I would like to go into the library and do my research or look for books or sit and read a book and have a quiet space. We have absolutely no quiet spaces in the two branches at this point. If you go to the Evans branch, the tiny little square that's supposed to be the teen area is right on top of the tiny little square that's the computer area. You can't, and then right next to that is the children's area. So I think seniors will appreciate that, and adults. I mean, not that seniors aren't adults. But people...
Get yourself out of that one, Marianne. Go ahead.
All ages.
Some days seniors like me aren't adults. But, okay, back to my story. I think they will appreciate, we will have absolute quiet study lounges with the comfortable chairs that no longer exist. So it is a place where you can come and have, an adult can have space that's quiet and not interrupted by children, whom we do not want to discourage, absolutely, because the children are the adult seniors of the future, as you may have noticed.
I think there's a way of looking at that question. When we say we want dedicated areas for the children and the teens, those are services for adults. A lady wrote a letter to the Democrat, or maybe it was an online comment on the Democrats' website about how she loved to visit the Evans Branch Library, but she regretted the fact that when her child was just enjoying the library the way a child does, not misbehaving, but just enjoying it, it would draw stares and frowns from adults who were just a few feet away trying to use the computers and think. And that really hit home with us and the staff at the Evans Branch. And it really made us realize that there are interactions that go on that aren't official, that we don't even realize are happening, like those glares and those stares when a kid's just being a kid.
Easy question. What town has the newest library?
Gates.
It's less than a year old, I believe.
Probably another easy question. Would space for meetings and tutoring be charged for use?
Currently, we charge for meeting room space. We'll have to revisit that should this new library open. I don't really know what everyone's mood is on that. It's a revenue producer, not a significant one. Currently, we charge nothing if another town department wants to use the room. We charge a small fee to nonprofits and a larger fee to for-profits. I'm guessing the tutoring rooms, if we have these, what we envision are a series of small rooms where groups of, say, 6 or less could meet. I don't see us charging for those, although, like I said, I don't know how everyone else feels. And those can be reserved like on an hourly basis maybe. But the larger meeting rooms, I don't know what everyone's mood is on that.
We're currently the only library that does charge for meeting room space, so it would
Actually,
definitely need to be revisited.
Some of the tutoring that's taken place between school, people that are suspended from school and such, because there's not enough room at the library, they are tutoring them at the Cooper Dell. I'm dead serious.
Well,
They are tutoring them at the Cooper Dell. Some children are there with a tutor at the Cooper Dell because there's not enough space over there to do it.
Well, we also have a situation where some of those students are deemed too dangerous to be allowed on school property, so they send them to the library. So the least we could do is put them in their own room.
Oh, excuse me, Peter, I know one of the other major questions that we'll answer quickly. Yes, there will be a coffee shop or some type of place there where you can get coffee and donuts. That's usually the first or second question at these meetings. Ladies, did that take care of your question back there? You're all set then?
Well, along the same lines as the previous question, will there be rooms available for rent that can be dedicated to specific community groups for storage? For example, the Arundecoit Community Concert Band would really like space to store several files full of music and also some band instruments.
For rent, well, I guess it would depend on the final square footage of what we're able to build. I think Mary Joyce is going to.
I would think it would be important that in this new facility that we are very careful about what goes into it. I see our reconfiguring the lower level of this building to accommodate as we start to rearrange what will be at the new library facility versus what we could store here at Town Hall. I think it would be more important that we look at what is available for storage in this building rather than having storage be in the new facility.
Peter?
Okay, what is the proposed timetable upon the passage of the referendum?
Well, I think best case scenario, if this referendum gets approved, I think the first thing we'll probably be considered is we'll get a construction manager on, get it designed, and you're probably looking at least 2 years before, I would say, spring of 2015, we could have a ribbon cutting here. And that's when we had that first question too, we're going to have a 2-year point here. We're going to be able to try to generate as much money to put towards the library as we possibly can. But I think best case scenario, if we can get a design team on, it'll take a while to design this whole library, get it out to bid. If we can get it out to bid late fall, start the groundbreaking next year at this time, and you're probably talking 9 to 12 months to get it done. So you're talking from today approximately about 2 years before we have a ribbon cutting, we can walk into a new library.
Question. I do not believe the impact of digital technology has been sufficiently addressed in this proposal. What impact will it have on space requirements? Has any projections been done on future use of paper books?
In 2005, the Dick Pans Library Consulting group did a study of our space needs, and they took into account a slight reduction in space for physical needs. So that, and we're basing our proposal a lot on what their square footage said. They estimated that we needed a space of about 52,000 square feet. A lot of what technology and digital media is showing us is that it isn't always predictable. We can plan for it. I'm not sure what else we can say that we will plan for it. There'll be download stations for digital media where, again, our current collections that we currently have do not fit in the buildings we have. So we need more space for our current collections. There are lots of materials that are not currently available as a digital format. I'm not sure how much else what else we can say. Mary Joyce has something to say, though.
I think also we avid readers, yes, I have a Kindle. I carry it in my handbag, so if I'm waiting at the hospital or for an appointment, I can zip that out and read something. But, in the last month, I probably have read more than 3,500 pages of books that are not digitized yet. And interestingly, I had read a book recently that I want to do some research on and reread it. So I went to Terry about getting it for my Kindle. What is interesting is there are some publishing houses that still do not want to digitize the books, or it is a case too that the authors do not want their books digitized yet because they're at the book signing, because they're new authors, they don't have agents yet, and it is the paper book that they are using to market themselves. And I don't know, as a new parent, I don't know exactly how Pat the Bunny would be on a Kindle, because there's something about Pat the Bunny, the children touching those. And so those of us who have taught for so many years know also how the print books have an impact too when children are first learning to read.
I feel like I'm totally realistic about the impact of digital technology on the library. And I agree with everyone who says that someday the library will go away. The real question is, what's the pace? I think you saw from those Pew Research numbers that 80% of the people surveyed thought that borrowing materials from the library was still their number one reason why they went to the library. Yes, someday when we all have the chip in our brain and everything just gets beamed to it. I'm not joking. I mean, this will be the reality someday. You won't even need devices. They'll probably implant it when you're born, just because it'll be more efficient. But the real question is, when is that going to happen? And so we've talked about how the library evolves and changes to meet community needs. If you're a regular library user, you will probably notice that most libraries, the reference section, the section where those great big tomes that you can't borrow but you have to use in the library, like the encyclopedias and the directories and the almanacs, those are shrinking now because they're being replaced by electronic resources. But the pace of change for books, especially nonfiction, especially information that's older, there's no economic incentive to publishers to digitize those. So I think the books will always be with us. They'll be supplemented by electronic resources, and the libraries will evolve and change. But we're not seeing a future anytime within the next, say, 30 years where we're going to need a smaller building when the library is changing over to this situation where we're having more activities and more programs, more training, all these digital resources. If you're a computer user or even a cell phone user, you know that the pace of change in that is bewilderingly fast, and more people come to us for training to help keep pace. And so, again, the library changes and evolves to meet those needs, and in a lot of cases, we need more space to do that, not less.
The other reality is that there are still lots of publishers that won't sell to libraries. So if there's a book you want, you don't want to pay for it, the only way to get it from a library would be to get it in the print form. Or there's publishers that charge more for a digital copy of a book than a physical copy of a book. So libraries are faced with, to make the tax dollars stretch more, we'll buy the physical copy and not buy the digital copy until the price comes down.
Also, to give you an idea of the rate of change, we're currently involved with, of course, the Monroe County Library System, and we are currently devoting 5% of our acquisitions budget to digital electronic media. Now that's 5%. That means that 95% of our acquisitions budget is still for media that have existed prior to digital books. That will probably change over time, but we're at 5% now, and I think it's probably going to stay that way for a while yet. I'm an avid ebook reader. That's the only type of books I can read at this point in my life because I can make the print large enough for me to see it. So obviously we're still going to have print and tangible media for quite a while yet.
And I find that I'm getting more and more audiobooks, and I don't want to buy those. I'd rather go to the library and get them because those are starting to be easier for me than using the just the large print or using an ebook. Definitely not using an ebook is not the easiest thing.
If I could just interject, if there's going to be room for Pat the Bunny, is there also room for Peter Rabbit? We're good. Question. I use the library, the Evans branch, a lot with my grandchild. Any ideas, plans on a larger kids area that's either soundproofed or away from the main adult area? Will both children's libraries be retained?
That's what I'm talking about when I say a dedicated children's area is a service for adults. Modern children's areas can be designed so that there are areas where adult and children work together, like on a computer or with a book. And yes, designed so that the sound doesn't carry. And again, we're not talking about misbehaving children. We're talking about children who are just enjoying themselves and maybe a little exuberant. But yeah, this is what you can get in a library that's large enough, a space for everyone to enjoy the library the way they want to enjoy it. A quiet area, a children's area, a teen area, so that everyone can live in harmony. And so we've got 2 dedicated children's librarians who are have a lot of great ideas about what they could do with more space, and I could even see us talking to a consultant about what libraries are doing with children's spaces all over the country, so we make sure that we have the latest design.
Peter? And our last few questions. Question on programming rooms. Will kitchen facilities be available? And the computer area, will there be any college-type cubicles for privacy?
Yes. And yes. Not a full-blown kitchen. We don't want people preparing, steak dinners in our kitchen. But there are times when, like a children's room might need a sink if they're washing up after a particularly messy program, or preparing light refreshments, or there's cooking-type demos that could happen in our meeting rooms if we had those types of facilities. So it would be a limited kitchen-type area, but yes, and definitely we see a lot more people, a lot more students are getting their college degrees online, so they don't really have a school library to go to. And that was something else that came out of the discussions we had with the seniors at the high school, some are planning on going on the online route. So our library could be their library and having some dedicated space for them where they can come and do their studies in a private place. Yeah, we want to be able to offer that too. And adult learners who are going back to school are getting their degrees online, so they need space, outside of their home where they're being distracted by other things that are going on in their lives to be able to come to a library and have that space that they need. We envision that, yes.
A couple of weeks ago, some of us toured the new, it's fairly new, Webster Recreation Center. And they've got a gym and some athletic facilities. And then they have a series of these meeting rooms that are just the sort of thing we're talking about. I remember one room we saw it was actually 3 rooms that could be opened up into one huge room, but each smaller room had its own sound system, its own lighting, and its own small kitchen, a refrigerator, sink, and counter space, and electrical outlets, so you could have like a coffee maker or a microwave. And then that room could be opened up into one huge room, and because this was also a senior center, at the end of one of those rooms was a major kitchen. So I'm not saying we'll have a major kitchen, but that sort of flexible space almost has to include some sort of kitchen facilities, just so the rooms can be used to their maximum potential.
Peter, any more questions?
That is all on behalf of those who submitted written questions. Thank you.
Okay, why don't we, there's some most frequently asked questions like, where's the coffee going to be? My favorite is, why don't you move to an empty shopping mall? I think we've had that question before.
Yep. We don't own the empty shopping mall, so
That's correct. The key thing is this building would be Arundequoit's building, not a shopping mall building or anybody else's building. What we're coming down to basically is we're talking a cost factor, which has been presented to you as one large pizza and a dozen chicken wings. For us old people, it's older people. Sorry, Miriam. It's probably a large cup of coffee at Starbucks once a month. So that's what you're talking about, a little over $2 a month for something that you'll be able to see. Okay, I know we pay taxes. The only thing I really see is maybe a bike path along the lake, which I thoroughly enjoy. Maybe a baseball field over in Empire that's fully packed with kids and seniors playing baseball. I'm sort of, I don't love paying taxes like anybody else, but when I pay them, I sort of like to see it, be able to use it. According to Ms. Gantz, I'll be able to use this if they'll be able to done in 2 years. Is that correct? So it's something that you'll be able to use, and your grandchildren and your children will be able to use. So think about that. We talked about rooms, we talked about parking, we talked about things like that. First, we have to do it. First, you have to vote on doing it and get it up and running. Then all those questions, I think, can be readily answered. Why don't we do in closing, start at the end of the table and work down?
I think I'm known for my frugality, and it's a good thing that over the years when I paid the mortgage on the house, I didn't stop to think about how much interest I was paying over those 30 years. I also think about the home equity, which is like a revolving credit card that interest mounts each month. But I love living in that house. And even more importantly, I love living in Arundequoit. I chose to be here because there's no other town, and no offense to those who don't live in Arundequoit, but there is no other town like Arundequoit. We're a walkable community. I'm looking forward to perhaps getting a new bicycle this spring. I look at our tree-lined streets, and I am a tree hugger, and there's been concern about, what about the trees on town campus? Well, as it is, we know the companies that literally can move the trees that need to be saved if they have to be moved. The sycamores, the magnolias, the ones that are invasive do need to go, as we've been trying to eradicate those in Arundequoit. The thing is, I want you to visualize this town campus. No other town has a campus that is a historic center as well. Not only this beautiful town hall, and even Broderick knew that this town hall would not be large enough, is why he visualized the library on the east lawn and the public safety building on the west lawn, which, by the way, was built in the northern part of the property. But we have the blacksmith shop. We have the Pioneer House. We have the gazebo. We have the horseshoe pits. We have a campus in which we can have the community come together. That's why the 4th of July is so popular. That's why the farmers market is so popular. Just envision having that library on this town campus, a library that the community will build together. That it's not just where the water and the lands meet, but where the water, the land, and the community meet together. Visualize that as we have to start thinking more efficiently about the cost of gasoline in our cars if we were to drive here or walk. And it's a Thursday, and we're coming here. We're going to go to the library first, take care of our needs there. We're then going to walk over onto the west lawn for the farmers market, buy our goodies there. And gee, you know, while I'm here, I might as well enjoy that concert at the gazebo. Just look at the things you can enjoy on this campus just in one late afternoon and evening. What unifying factor to bring a community together in what is 15 square miles. We're densely populated, and we all can get along right here on this campus. It is important for a town to invigorate and put money into its assets, because when a town does that, it shows that the town takes pride in itself. That's why we maintain our homes. That's why we maintain our lawns, because we are a bedroom community. And when you ask about putting a library at the mall, well, in Irondequoit, it doesn't fit there, because East Ridge is much more of a commercial, manufacturing, industrial zone. And we want to be where we are the community, more in the residential area. So it's important for our residents, when they cast their vote on April 23rd, to do it with the correct information, that you have all of your questions answered, and that you do not be swayed by misinformation. In the next week or so, we're going to have more information on just how the financing will take place. But as I look at it, and yes, I'm a senior citizen, that new library is where I'm going to want to spend my time when I decide to finally retire, because that library is going to provide the services and the programs that I think are important to a town that deserves it. A town that's intelligent, well-educated, and knows that the arts are important, and for our own town to survive into the future. And that's something we always have to think about. It's not just for us for today. We have to look at what our children, our grandchildren, and the legacy that we leave behind for all of us. I'll sit down. I know Judge Joe's thinking I'm talking a lot, but I really believe that this is an important project for Irondequoit.
Just in closing, first of all, I want to thank everyone, and I think that there should be a big thank you to these folks to my right here and your left, because there has been a lot of work involved in this process here. There are a couple folks missing, they're out of town, but there's been a lot of work by this board along with Terry that has tried very hard to get as much information out to the community as they can. I don't think you're going to ever see another project that's been out in the community like this one. And just in closing, it's been a long time since we've had a capital project, probably since the public safety building in the back. It's been a long time for that. We did McAvoy Park not too long ago, but I look at things a little different as well. I look at this too. Building this building is a good job creator for everybody. From beginning to end, we're going to have construction managers to design and engineering. The trades will be on the job, plus all the vendors are going to be around that will be selling products to construct this building. So I look at that too as a good generator for people out there to have jobs. It's always a good thing. I don't think there's anybody out there that does not say they wouldn't like to create any jobs. But again, this library board deserves a lot of thank yous from the community just to get this project where it is today and try to get as much information for people to make a yes or no vote on April the 23rd. So just get out there and vote and let's hope that this project moves forward.
I just want to say, I never chose to come to Arundequite. I was brought here literally kicking and screaming and probably with wet britches by my parents, but I did choose to stay here. I chose to raise my family here, and I'm very lucky that my daughter has chosen to stay here too and raise my grandchildren here, and it is my sincere hope that my grandchildren will choose to stay here.
Our four boys enjoyed the best of an education in this town. They're no longer here. My wife and I are, and we have no intentions of leaving because we have all those things that Mary Joyce talked about. And with the library, we will have probably the greatest town in the county.
When I moved back here in 1993, I chose Arundequite for the school systems and the libraries. In 97, I was asked to be on the Library Board's Long-Range Planning Committee. We met for a year, produced a report in 99, which was referenced on the slide. I still believe libraries are a big part of what makes any town's culture worth belonging to. I started my business here in 1995. It's a great town. It's a great place to be. A great library would certainly help maintain that situation.
I just want to thank everybody for coming. I went to high school here in Arundequite. I grew up in the city, went to Bishop Kearney. I was out of state for a while, living in Florida and living in Virginia. And when I came back, I specifically moved to Arundequite and have been here since.
I had to write my comments down. I want to thank you all for coming. As you've heard, this proposal has come after many, many years of discussions and studies. But these public forums continue to provide us with valuable input and allow us to answer any questions you have and then add to our project as we hopefully move it forward. This proposal and the vote on it are just the first steps in the process. The community will be involved in every step along the way, and the needs and design will be evaluated throughout the process. If the referendum passes, we'll immediately send out requests for proposals to architects, and from the selection of the architect to the creation of the final design, there will be an open and transparent process with public input. If adjustments are needed to the size and scope of the facility we currently envision, we will make changes based in part on the community discussions held with the architect. Flexibility and adaptability will be vital elements to the design. We don't want to build something that will be inadequate the minute it is done being built. Communities in the past who have cut out meeting room space have often regretted with, as we mentioned, Greece just recently doing another renovation to add additional meeting room space. Traffic, parking, green space, and other town activities will all be considerations in the final design. Money will be spent in a fiscally responsible way that gets us the best result to meet our needs. Just because the voters approve borrowing up to $13 million doesn't mean we have to spend it all. And we don't need to borrow all of the money, and we certainly don't need to borrow it all at once, allowing for lower interest, short-term borrowing with much lower interest rates. Fundraising and grants will offset as much of the cost as possible, and we will own the building with no leasing involved and no property being taken off of the tax rolls. We have another public information forum scheduled for April 10th at 6:30 here in the Broderick Room. We hope that you and your neighbors will attend these so we have the opportunity to share this proposal and hear from everyone and counter any misinformation that you might be hearing out there. If you have any additional questions or need clarification on anything we've discussed, please don't hesitate to ask. You can contact us by email or visit libraryproposal.com for more information. I want to thank the Friends of the Arundequite Library for your tremendous help throughout this process, and to Joe Janier and Peter Mendek for your assistance throughout as well. And thank you all again for being a part of our discussion.
I just have one thing to say. Please vote on April 23rd. The ultimate survey will be conducted that day, and then we'll see how people really feel about building a new library. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.